Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
It's that time of the week again. It's Talk Back. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Nesbit. As always, with me is Justin Gay, the host and director of content. He has another fantastic show lined up for us this week. We're going to talk Rams and Chiefs, the Vikings and the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell possibly on the trading block, or is he coming back? Atlanta giving me a scare as far as my Vegas over pick for them. We'll talk Indianapolis Colts, Chicago Bears, Earl Thomas and the Seattle Seahawks. We need to discuss the Ryder Cup, the complete implosion of the U.S. team. Who's at fault? What's the fallout from that? And then, as Justin and I previewed last week, the NASCAR series was at the Charlotte Roval. It was all of the drama and more that we were hoping for. So all of that on this edition of Talk Back. It's episode 219. We'll hit you after the break.
We're back on episode 219. It's hard to believe we're already at the quarter point of the NFL season. This thing just goes by so fast. This was an intriguing week of football, and let's start at the top. Week 4 of this NFL season started on Thursday night, a matchup we had circled on the calendar there in L.A. with the Los Angeles Rams. It ended on Monday night with maybe the most talked about player in the league in Patrick Mahomes. Both the Rams and the Chiefs now 4-0 at this point in the season. Eric, they've been the talk of the league. So here at the quarter point, who's currently the best team in the NFL? Is it the Rams or the Chiefs?
That's a great question, Justin, but I've got to give this one to the Rams. They are winning and winning impressively. They beat tough teams, and they also blow out bad teams. This Rams squad is super impressive, and I put that on the fact that their offense performs just as well as we knew their defense would. You got to give it to Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, even Cooper Kupp, Woods, Cooks. I mean, they're hitting you from all angles right now in LA with those Rams, not the Chargers every week, but those Rams for sure. The Chiefs are 4-0, but they're not winning games as impressively. There is one player on that team that is winning impressively, and that, as you said, is Patrick Mahomes. And they've got Kareem Hunt, they've got Travis Kelce, they have Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins is on the mend right now, but they have firepower for days in that offense. Their defense, though, is very suspect, and so although they're 4-0 now, they could very easily be 2-2, 3-1. They've just got away with a few things. And so I put this one on the Rams as being the team out of those two that impresses me the most, but the player that impresses me the most is Patrick Mahomes. That guy is electrifying.
Yeah, unfortunately, I get to see him front and center Monday night versus my Broncos, and that comeback in the fourth quarter. He just put on a show, Eric. They couldn't get to him. They were trying just about everything they could. They rushed 4, and he would beat them because he just had too much time. If they blitz, he'd just pick them apart. He's definitely a special player. Look, it goes to what Andy Reid did. He made the move to get rid of the veteran Alex Smith and bring in Mahomes, and frankly, for good reason. Now, Alex Smith did start off last year 5-0. Mahomes has got him 4-0, so it's not like he's run away, but just offensively, they're doing so much more in Kansas City than they've ever did. They're such a vertical team. But then again, so are the Rams. And I think you nailed it. From a defensive standpoint, I think that's the difference. Offense for offense, I think they could go point for point, drive for drive with each other. And we saw Watkins leave Monday night's game hurt. But the Chiefs have a ton of weapons as well with Tyreek Hill, Then you have Sammy Watkins, you have Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt had a big game on Monday night. So there's a lot of weapons in Kansas City as well. But on the defensive side, you saw Denver really gash them with the run game and controlled a lot of that game throughout. Then just sort of fell apart in the fourth quarter with just a ill-timed 3-and-out. If Kansas City lost that game on Monday night in Denver, we'd be having a different conversation now. Is Mahomes been overhyped? Have we overlooked the Chiefs' defense, how poorly they've played? But the Rams have just been more impressive. Now, they have some defensive issues of their own. They gave up 31 points to a Minnesota team on a short week traveling. So I know they had some injuries, that being the Rams, there on Thursday, but they still did give up 31 points. But just from an offensive side, Eric, they're just so explosive at this point. It looks like Jared Goff, what we talked about even in their season preview, has he taken that step forward where you feel confident that he can take the rest of this roster into the playoffs and win them football games there? Because we know that no matter how good a team is, sometimes it just frankly comes down to the quarterback. And so many of these NFL games are coming down to who has the ball last and which quarterback has the confidence to get their team up and down the field, get them in field goal range, get a touchdown if they need it. It looks like Goff, to me, Eric, is taking that step forward.
100%. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is leading the league in touchdowns. Second to him is Jared Goff. Jared Goff is second in the league in passing yards, only 5 yards behind Ben Roethlisberger, who, as we all know, basically just airs it out every week because Le'Veon Bell isn't there. Then if you look at QBR, Jared Goff's number one, and right behind him is Patrick Mahomes. So these two teams that we're discussing right now are led by superstar young quarterbacks. I give Jared Goff all the credit in the world because I remember we were looking at Jared Goff going into his second year saying, who knows what this guy's going to be? He played really well last year. He brought that team sort of up out of the basement, and now he has taken the reins of that Rams team, and he is absolutely the leader on offense. And when you can back that up with a Todd Gurley and the receivers that they have, it didn't bother me that their defense gave up 31 against what I would consider a pretty high-flying offense in Minnesota when you're talking about Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and what you would expect from a Kirk Cousins with all the money they've paid him. They should have more running back power than they do, but they're dealing with injuries. Look, they gave up 31 points and still won the game. This Rams team was the laughingstock of the NFL not just half a decade ago because they couldn't score 12 points. They gave up 31 and still won that game. And Justin, to be honest with you, that was a great Thursday night game, but I never really felt like the Rams were out of control.
No, I had to watch that game on a flight and it felt the same way. They just felt like they just kind of kept the Vikings at arm's length, that they could offensively do whatever they wanted to do. And the Vikings were having some success, but just not to the level at the Rams where you really felt like they were in any danger at any point. Even when Minnesota had the ball, you just felt like the Rams were going to make a play there at the end, and that's exactly what they did. Well, Eric, speaking of those Vikings that played on Thursday night, they find themselves at 1-2-1, a very odd record, but they have some company there in the Pittsburgh Steelers who also find themselves at 1-2-1 after their Sunday night loss at home to the Baltimore Ravens. We had high expectations that they potentially would be fighting for the respective championship in their division, potentially a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So at the quarter point, both of them 1-2-1. Which team is in worse shape right now?
Pittsburgh Steelers are in worse shape. I mean, they have a 1-2-1 record, and the game they tied against the Browns, they really legitimately could have lost that game. So they could be 1-3. They already are, based on ties, in last place in their division. Then they're looking up at a team that we'll talk about in a minute, Cincinnati and Baltimore. They're in trouble already. Now, it's so early in the season, although, like you said, it's a quarter in. But realistically, it's still pretty early. A 2-3 game spread in the NFL can change rather quickly. On the other hand, the Vikings, that doesn't worry me as much because, as we talked about with the NFC North and then also with the NFC in general, I feel like we're going to see teams in the NFC beat up on each other a lot. Now, in our preview series, we thought that maybe there could be 5 or 6 teams in the NFC that won 10 games. Looking at it now, I don't think that's going to happen. The Eagles already have 2 losses. The Green Bay Packers have a loss already. The Vikings have 2 losses. Then you're looking at a team like Atlanta that already has 3 losses. So I don't think those multiple 10-win teams are going to happen. And therefore, if Minnesota can just right the ship, I wouldn't push the panic button yet because they still have a lot of star power. They're basically just one game behind Green Bay. I think that's a coin flip as we go through the season. Green Bay is going to hinge on so many injuries. We're already seeing them deal with that with a Randall Cobb and different players that are in and out of the lineup on week to week. And then you've got those Bears that are performing really well. So does that maintain throughout the whole season? The Vikings, I'm not panicking on. If I'm the Steelers, looking at the AFC picture, looking at teams like Miami and Cincinnati and Baltimore, even Tennessee, who are multiple wins over where we thought they'd be after 4 games. If you're the Steelers and you have 1 win after week 4, that's a problem.
Do you think with the Vikings, with the expectations so high on them, they really didn't have that level of expectation on them last year, but this year with Cousins coming in with the monster fully guaranteed deal, do you think the pressure is getting to them at all, or is this just kind of growing pains from putting this team together?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, one of their losses is, like we said, Thursday night against the Rams, and we're talking about the Rams potentially being one of the best teams in the NFL. So it's hard to feel bad about that. At the same time, there's been a couple of games early in the season where it didn't look like Cousins was quite ready to step up into that pressure-packed role. Maybe as the season rolls along, that settles down a little bit. I just think they have enough talent there that it's not quite panic time. I mean, they should all be professionals. And look, if Cousins can't handle the pressure of a high-paid, high-salary QB that he really put himself in based on what he was asking for in Washington and how he wanted to move on, that's just a bad look, because if you want to take on that role and that income for a team, then you've got to be willing to handle the pressure.
I tend to agree with you, though, with Pittsburgh. I'm going to lean that direction as well as who's in worse shape. I think the Vikings will bounce back, and I think Cousins has performed fairly well in his role. I think the Vikings are still working out defensively, trying to get back to the level they were. They're working Dalvin Cook back in, and he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. But I think the Steelers are in worse shape, not just because Le'Veon Bell, which we'll get to next, but Eric, their defense is horrible. They can't stop anybody at this point. We saw they gave up a 14-point lead in Cleveland. They made Patrick Mahomes, they put him on the map with 6 touchdown passes on the road. Ryan Fitzpatrick lit him up in the second half just last week. And then this week, Flacco lights him up. So their secondary is just not very good. I know they had an injury as well, but I just don't trust their defense at all right now. They're not really getting pressure. If they do try to bring pressure, they just get annihilated in the back end. So they're almost in a catch-22 right now because their secondary is not good enough to hold guys off, and they can't get there with 4. And if they try to bring 5 or 6 on a blitz, they just can't cover anybody. So I think from that standpoint, Pittsburgh is the team that concerns me more, because even if they get Le'Veon Bell back, they're still going to be in shootouts, it feels like, every week. So, Rick, let's talk about Le'Veon Bell, because on Sunday it was reported, and actually probably a little bit earlier than that in the weekend, but Sunday it definitely came out with more details that Le'Veon Bell is on the trading block, that the Steelers are taking calls, they're entertaining offers. Looks like they want a second-round pick and a player, a starting caliber player, in a trade for Bell. Then, just early this week, it was reported Le'Veon Bell planned to return during the bye week, week 7, come back for week 8. So, Eric, this is a story that just continues to grow. It continues to sort of change itself. It's this huge thing looming over the Steelers team right now. Will Bell join the team? Are they going to trade him? Is he going to sit out? How long will he sit out? Will he come back at all? It seems like this is something this team, they got to get some kind of an answer on, because it's certainly affecting them. So if you're running the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point, do you try to trade Le'Veon Bell, or do you just ride it out and give it one last shot for this year with this team?
As we talked about, it's kind of a comical situation because the Steelers are trying to have their cake and eat it too. Le'Veon is basically leveraging his position, trying to figure out how long he can stay out. I think what he's starting to see is that the Steelers don't care. They will trade him now and they will move on. And so the bargaining power that he might have thought he had as he's sitting there watching $890,000 a week go out the bank account, that's probably starting to hurt. As a player, when you plan to sit out, I'm sure you're doing the math in your head and you're saying, okay, I can maybe leverage this and I can wait a week or two and see if it puts enough pressure on them to make a move. Well, now he's at week 4 and the Steelers are not talking about anything other than getting rid of him. And so Le'Veon's now kind of flipping the script and saying, well, maybe I'll come back after the bye week, and trying to ease himself back in. Meanwhile, the Steelers, like I said, they want their cake and eat it too. They want all this stuff for a player that they themselves won't pay for. And so it's like, make up your mind. This is just a messy situation. Back to your other question and how it kind of moves into this question is that the